Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Overwatch League and welcome to the start of the North American Winners Bracket Quarterfinals. Wow, I nailed it in one, didn't think I was going to do that. It's a bit of a tongue twister for us there, Josh, to start the day. And that's how you know it's going to be a good day, because I didn't mess up my lines. We're going to be jumping into it here, and it's the start of really where the tournament is going to kick off in terms of the upper bracket, the lower bracket. Teams finally have a chance where they can lose a match and then they won't be knocked out of the entire season. And we're going to take a look at the matches that have already been played. As you can see, we've already had a lot of these knockout games being played with some almost upset results. I'd say, Boston early on, of course, was an upset. But now we're getting into the nitty-gritty, and it is, of course, the matches at hand that are really quite important.
Yeah, and these are set up to be some fantastic runs. Obviously, there is a lower bracket here that's not shown on the screen, but this is our North American winners bracket as well. And we're in the semifinals today, and we've already got some amazing matchups. For example, our starting match with the Philadelphia Fusion going up against the Los Angeles Gladiators, that's going to be a doozy. And then we go on to the Valiant Mayhem later on. Yeah. I mean, we've got just some peak matchups happening already early on here in the bracket. Some classic rivalries as well. And we're in the quarterfinals, and there couldn't be a better place for these two teams to have another rematch, because they've met in quarterfinals twice before in the season, with the Philadelphia Fusion taking the win both times.
Yep, keeps happening. The Philadelphia Fusion keep upsetting, or I say upsetting, the Gladiators. They've generally they've generally been the favorites, but they've definitely been upsetting the Gladiators' day by beating them. They've been a little bit obviously annoyed about that. But one of the star players who has been always turning up, especially yesterday, has been Birdring. And Birdring, in case you missed it, he was playing this game while he was feeling under the weather. Since then, obviously, the team has got him checked out. He's been to the doctors. He's been cleared to play today. He's being monitored quite closely. But he put up a monstrous performance. And I made this reference earlier. I'm going to make it again because Nick, one of our producers, whispered it in my ear. Very akin to kind of the Michael Jordan flu game, where he just had an absolutely unreal performance. Many solo carry moments from Birdring in this series to get them here in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, definitely. It wasn't easy though, right? They got to the final round of the final map against the Toronto Defiant. You can see over the course of the season as well, Birdring has been putting up some monstrous numbers, especially when it comes to that Widowmaker. Anytime that they can get him on that role, and if he performs up to his best, even though he's not feeling 100% right now, they have a chance to be able to upset the Philadelphia Fusion. Carpe versus Birdring, that is an outrageous matchup that people who have been longtime fans of Overwatch are just going to be frothing for.
Yes, that would be nice to see indeed. As you can see from the Gladiator starting lineup, there's not really going to be too much switch-ups. And, staying with the age-old compositional team that they have been running for quite some time. The only exception is, of course, Birdring is going to be starting yesterday. There was an exception to that. Obviously, he was feeling under the weather, but he is going to be starting for them today. Obviously, he feels well enough to do so. He was cleared to do so by the doctors as well. And I have liked the looks that Gladiators are showing. I like that they're sticking with this OG space combination of tanks, the Winston Diva across the board. I think it's a composition that shows a lot more flexibility, requires a lot more coordination to pull off effectively, but if you can do it right, that's what you're going to be competing against top teams with.
Definitely. Now, we'll take a look at their opponents, the Philadelphia Fusion, because they had a fantastic finish to the regular season. They beat the San Francisco Shock, the final boss of North America, and they secured themselves that #1 seed overall. So the Philadelphia Fusion right now, they're your #1 seed going into the playoffs. If you're a North American team, this is the team to be scared of right now. Oh, yeah. Carpe had an incredible match, both playing the McCree and some Widowmaker. Hisu also looking fantastic on the Sombra, which we're also expecting to be a fair mainstay when it comes to the playoffs. We haven't seen too much of it over in North America, but certainly in APAC, we're expecting it to be a dominant force, and I think some of that will also trickle over, especially if Hisu starts defining the way that those heroes should be played. Now, the Philadelphia Fusion have also matched up spectacularly well to the Gladiators in the past. Like I said, beaten them twice in quarterfinals earlier on, and they reverse swept them as well in their only match of the regular season. So some of those games have been competitive, but here's the starting lineup as well for Philly Fusion. The only notable absence being Carpe, but he often doesn't play on first map Lijiang.
Yeah, Philly are so comfortable playing against Gladiators. Funny Astro said it in the selection show, didn't he? He said that Gladiators looked exhausted and beatable, I believe, was the terms he used. The direct quote from Funny Astro, to which Big Goose responded with, Yeah. So there wasn't really much firing back. I think Big Goose realizes it's been a long and treacherous road to get to this point here, but I cannot think of a better series to kick off the day today than these two teams placing off. And I said earlier, Fusion, they're quite comfortable playing against the Gladiators for many reasons. I think they feel like they have them almost figured out a lot of the times, and they're definitely comfortable in the Fusion, they're very comfortable in their ability to adapt on the fly in a game, which is something traditionally Gladiators have struggled a little bit with, is adapting to sort of on the fly movements.
Yeah, the Gladiators really need a game plan coming into a game, otherwise they fall to pieces a little bit. But the Philadelphia Fusion are quite happy to go into a match, realize that their opponents are beating them, and change their game plan entirely. They'll play compositions they've never practiced before just because they believe it'll work against that opponent on that day. In fact, that's how they reverse swept the Gladiators in their regular season match against them. So that's the kind of dangerous adaptability that Philly have. And in a meta like we have right now in the playoffs that is so up in the air, nothing has really been nailed down. It's on these top teams to kind of figure it out as they go along and define how the game should be played. That's a scary attribute to have. And it looks like they're starting out here on the Sombra Reaper, something that's been very popular in APAC, and some of the top teams in NA have been trying it out as well. Mirror on the Torbjorn.
Yeah, Mirror on the Torbjorn and OG on the Reinhardt. A rush composition coming out from the Gladiators here. They want to get right up in the close quarters and start swinging away. But Fusion are just playing this patiently, passive, waiting around the corner. You see them trickling away, and they've spotted an opening. They try and jump onto Mirror down the Torbjorn. Put them a little bit low here. Just trading blows for the time being, waiting for those cooldowns to come off. And now the point's going to start to unlock. So Gladiators are going to assume their position onto the point, see if they can block them off, and they're going to get that early first capture. Coalescence builds up incredibly fast. Shaz immediately going to be using it, but the Fusion answering back with one of their own. Alarm keeping his team alive. OG so low, and that's that brawl potential. The Fusion, they spotted a singular weakness. I think it may have been a bubble from Sado to split up the healing. And they managed to do it and just pick him off.
Now they just capitalize completely. Mirror desperately using his Morton Core back, but the tide of the Philadelphia Fusion will wait for no man. They surge into the point and are easily able to cap that one up. They didn't even have to get in the middle of that fight. In fact, I didn't see a single hack come out from Hisu, so the Sombra wasn't really even a factor in that. It was really just a positional play in the way that the Gladiators tried to take advantage of that earlier coalescence, and the Philadelphia Fusion accepted their aggression and responded. Now we'll see Hisu have some impact though. I'm anticipating an aggressive EMP. Oh, but the solo hack on the space is so smart.
A great hack, yeah. Mirror's going to get the early pick though onto Ivy. That's going to remove a lot of damage now from the Fusion. So even if Fusion want to commit with the EMP here, it's going to be a hard fight to win. They're going to use it anyway. The EMP comes through, but OG's got the kill onto Hisu, just swinging his hammer. Promo Rage from Sado is going to do a lot of damage, knocking him straight off. And the Fusion going back at it with the ultimates. You can see right in the kill feed filling up there. A lot of environmental kills off the back of Funny Astro's individual plays. But a big setup and a nice read from the Fusion as well to win that when they were a man down.
The Gladiators, though, did not invest any ultimates into that. They accepted that it was lost. I mean, they couldn't have done anything anyway because they were all EMP'd. It was a 6-man EMP. But at the same time, that has its benefits because now they're coming back in with 6 ults versus 1 and a very good opportunity here to turn things around. Unless Hisu gets off a miracle hack onto a key target or there's some individual pick, it seems destined to go the way of the Gladiators.
Early sound barrier here is going to keep them onto the point along with the Coalescence stacking it. This is beautiful by the Fusion. They're just biding their time, waiting out this aggression. Going to give Gladiators a lot of room. The Earth Shatter comes round the corner. Not connecting onto too many targets, but that's perfectly fine because Birdering is there with the Death Blossom. Lays it into them. The Gladiators going to be flipping this point over in their favor now. Maybe able to get a couple of straggler kills as well, which would be great.
Big Goose kept his sound barrier, so that's going to be available to counter Hisu's EMP. That's a key part to be able to keep this momentum going. It's not really worthwhile to capture the point if you have to use all of your ults to do it anyway, but the fact they've kept on to that Big Goose ultimate allows them to play a little aggressive here, bait out the EMP. But the Philadelphia Fusion, they want to go before it's even ready.
Yeah, it's a smart self-destruct from space there just to temper off some of that aggression again coming out from the Fusion when they try to jump in. Space just taking away the high ground, and a bit of a brawl again from OG as he's just diving straight into him, and he's got his teams to back him up. You can see Shaz laying in the healing once again with the Coalescence, doing a lot of work here. Fusion struggling to get anything done. They end up using this Primal Rage Sado didn't get anything done with this. A great hold for the Gladiators because they're still holding on to that sound barrier, and Hisu has only just built up that EMP.
This is going to be final fight here. Hisu with the EMP could be huge, but like I've been saying, Big Goose just still has that sound barrier available. Yeah. Sado, in fact, has gone over to the Reinhardt in order to perhaps just provide a bit more stability and firepower in this fight.
Ready and waiting. Earthshatter for Moji comes out early, but Fusion answering back immediately with their own sound barrier. Let's see if they can make it work here. Sado's going to be brought down. Self-destruct to the back. Will it get anything done? It will bring down space. EMP still held on for Hisu here. Does not want to even opt into it. And it's an intelligent play. He held on to it, realized his team was going to be winning the team fight without it. And now they've got it for this next team fight. But on the other side, of course, Big Goose still holding on to that sound barrier of his own. It's like this game of cat and mouse.
It really is, and I love that from Philadelphia Fusion. They know that Big Goose can't invest the sound barrier, so they just use their own. They use double support ultimate. Funny Astro and Alarm pushed in, and an overwhelming health advantage won them that fight. Because Big Goose, he just had to die with his ult, because Hisu was keeping hold of his EMP. It's so smart.
So much pressure on Big Goose to stay alive. He needs to be able to come back in with that sound barrier afterwards.
Cancelled the coalescence.
Nice hack comes through the EMP. Instant sound barrier. Perfect from Big Goose. Going to be finding so much Ivy. Oh my goodness. Teleports up to the high ground when he got booped off, but no booped off in the end. He got the kill. Big Goose come back for round 2, and now the overtime ticking down. It matters not. The Fusion making the swaps over to the stall heroes. It's not going to be enough. Round number 1 going away at the Gladiators. What a start to this series.
Wow, you could not get any closer than that between these two teams. Big Goose was so scared of Hisu's EMP the entire time, and I really thought that Hisu would clutch it at the end there when he managed to get the hack on Shaz and deny the coalescence. But the Gladiators had already taken all of the space on the point at that point in time. I think, although it seems very smart from Philly, and it did come down to the absolute wire, perhaps they'll adjust their game plan to play a little more aggressive. Because with all of the space that they're giving the Gladiators, the Los Angeles team is actually able to bring the game to be incredibly close and even take the win in that first round. And we know that Philly, generally speaking, perform better when the tempo is increased, when they play faster, when they force mistakes out of the Gladiators. But these are going to be some very different compositions. Mirror on the Pharah, and there is just no possibility of a response from the Fusion. Their composition is purely based on the ground.
Yes. Ivy's made the switch over to the Tracer as well, so they may even make some swaps off here, because a lot of this early round is just going to be based on these compositions. Fusion seem to be hesitating. They don't want to be swapping up their composition. In fact, I think they're intentionally trying to take as much damage from the rockets as they can so they can build up the coalescence, but they're very split up right now, Josh. Not really finding too many targets.
The Philadelphia Fusion's comp needs to kill the players on the ground before Mirror can get value, but they've already fed him 60% of a barrage, so that might become very difficult. They're looking for hacks onto OG or Space and to dive those targets. Possibly onto Shaz if they can find him, but he's going to be a little more easily peeled. There's the hack onto Space.
Yeah, trying to dive onto him now as well. Point just about flipped over as this team fight continues, and OG's going to get bursted down there. Ivy with the tracking, finding his targets. Might be able to get a second one here onto Space. He's in close quarters. He will indeed. And this seems like a pretty sizably one fight now for the Fusion. It's just a couple of support players just hanging out indoors. They will be going down momentarily. A nice play there from the Fusion, just recognizing the rotation all the way around, getting the early capture onto the point, which is actually pretty crucial as well because they've already built up 22%, finding the win.
Yeah, very crucial. That absolutely is, and that's what the Philadelphia Fusion's comp is better at. It's better at occupying space and pressuring the tanks of OG in space. And really for the Gladiators, they just need huge value out of Mirror before the Philadelphia Fusion can get their picks. EMP is huge though, catches both of those tanks. Again, just a constant focus on OG in space.
Yeah, those are the two targets you really want to be catching. Catching with the EMP, it's always the tanks. If you take them out, the Gladiators are forced to really take space in other ways. They're going to get the Resurrect off onto OG, and OG with 2 kills off onto the flank here. What a high impact ult, or res, I should say.
Yeah, not an ult anymore,
Used to be an ult, but not anymore. Big Goose just leading us in with the Valkyrie just to give his team a bit more healing. You can see EMP going to be committed from Birdering now, and they are going to be able to collect the kill onto Hisu once again, but Fusion coming back in with a sizable sound barrier. That's going to give them the health advantage into this next fight. Still very, very low, quite scrappy, and the Gladiators still unable to really cap this point over in their favor, despite the fact this team fight's gone on so long. Another sizable res from Big Goose, bringing up Shaz. Surely this should be going the way of the Gladiators, Josh.
definitely. It's just a delay tactic at the moment for the Philadelphia Fusion. They want this point to go up and up and up as far as it can. And they've managed to push it into single fight territory. One win here for Philadelphia, and they'll have won this round. And really, that just comes down to whether they can burst down the tanks. Again, they've been pretty good at executing their game plan so far in this round, which is to hack one of OG or Space and get in there and burst them down with the Tracer, with the Sombra, and with a bit of a dive from somebody else. But it's been highly effective. And look, Hisu again going for that hack onto Space. But this time, Space is right there. And a nano boost onto OG, that's going to keep him healthy.
Yeah, they're going to have to play perfect here if they want going down early. Not ideal. That's Sado with the Primal Rage. Going to try and clutch it up here with the barrage, but he only gets the one kill, and Sado just hunting for towers. Not finding too much here. Gladiators are still in this if they play it correctly, but a wonderful hack onto Big Goose is going to cancel his momentum. And the overtime now in favor of the Philadelphia Fusion. Still in control at this point. Hisu holding onto the ZMP, actually forced to relocate back there. Didn't want to go down to Shaz and just the hip-fire shots coming out from him. They're going to get the D-Mech again onto Space. Now the Coalescence should be enough to just clean them up here, providing they can get the necessary kills. But they are stalling, Gladiators, finding opportunities to try and get this timer still ticking, but will not be enough. Eventually will burn down, and it's going to mean the Fusion taking round number 2 in map 1 of this series.
Pretty dominant second round as well. Not that similar to the first round, whereas the first round was very back and forth with pretty similar kind of comps. Kind of Rush-esque comps from both teams. This was a definite difference in styles. The Roadhog Diva composition coming out from the Gladiators versus the Sombra Tracer dive from Philly. And Philly just knew exactly how to counter their opposition. Nice to see a different look from the Gladiators for sure. And now we get to see really why Ivy is in for Lijiang. Because even though his Tracer was pretty good, let's take a look at this replay as well. What does Shaz do here?
You're powered up. Get in there.
Who gets the nano off?
The nano onto Big Goose, though. It was onto Big Goose instead of Mirror.
Right.
So it was a nano mercy in that in one of those fights halfway through there. This is why Ivy has been subbed in, though, to play the Junkrat here. Previously, I mean, in this map, he's been playing the the Reaper and the Tracer. Carpe is great on both those heroes, but it's really this Junkrat the reason that Ivy is in for Lijiang.
Gladiators have tried to get a read on this. You notice the picks here, playing the Tourbillon, playing the Diva as well to try and eat up as much damage as possible. I think the defense matrix of the Diva probably a lot more efficient at eating up the raw damage coming out from the Junkrat, but not efficient enough as Birdring will fall in the end. And that just passive damage just being outputted now from Fury. The right clicks just lasering them all down. Gets them nice and low, enough for Fusion to just tenderize them, take them out. It's going to be the early capture and early flip, and this is a brutal position to be in if you are the Gladiators now, pushing into so much spam damage. Look at their comp, Josh.
Yeah, it's crazy. And also Fury on the Zarya, I kind of love that pick, and Space has been almost forced to mirror it, because otherwise the damage that comes out from Fury is obscene. Yeah. The Space will be able to build up his energy very easily against the Junkrat. Just put the bubbles on anybody, you're going to catch spam damage all over the place. But Fury's already at 100%, and they find the kill on Mirror.
Yeah,
he
beautiful
was
trap. Wonderful work there from the Fusion, and just catching that one player out of position. It's an underrated aspect. You don't really think about it when you think about the Junkrat. You always think about the tire, the amount of damage he can pump out, you know, the fast-building ultimates. But you don't think about it for a split second. You get caught out of position like that. I mean, Mirror playing the Doomfist, it's already a character that if you're caught out of position, you are a sitting duck. He has nothing to mitigate all of that going his way. And just off the back of that, they win that first team fight, or they win that team fight right off the bat, and now they've built up a huge ult bank.
Yeah, a massive ult advantage, and also Mirror has got his work cut out here, even approaching. There's just so much random damage to avoid for him to try and get into a position. Grab comes out immediately as well. Massive ult advantage. Sound barrier for both teams, but this tire, he's just going to wait it out.
Something nice. Big Goose tried to just dislodge him, and he just waits with the tire. That's a really smart play in the Fusion now, just cleaving through anyone who stands in their way. Look at that. God, the damage output is just so immense. It's so hard to stand up to it now, and 80% and counting here in map number 1. Gladiators making some full switches across the board. You can see Birdring moving over now to the Junkrat himself, OG over to the Reinhardt. It's desperate
OG
times.
was thinking about going to the ball. He thought he would have to swap to Wrecking Ball to touch the point, but he goes back to the Reinhardt now, and Birdring is going to have one desperation attempt. Mirror needs to clutch this. If there's anybody that can do it, it's him.
Yeah, Mirror desperately trying to find an opening pick. funny, Astro just about surviving, but the Gladiators, they found so many openings off the back of the entry there. Mira just gliding with the seismic slam, setting his team up for success, causing the distraction in the back line. Nicely done.
Yeah, that's really clutch from the Gladiators. They didn't really use any ultimates whatsoever. Mira just got a nice engage into the backlines for free, and then Birdring hit a lot of his shots. Philadelphia making swaps with both of their players here. Ivy over to the Doomfist to try and Mira, but then a Reaper as well. Doom Reaper, we haven't seen this comp really be meta since the Grand Finals last year. Some teams have tried it at various points in the season, but it hasn't looked great. See if the Fusion can win. They only need one fight, but this doesn't look like it's going to be the one.
Yeah, an early grab will seal that deal. Remember, there's no one there to eat it up. No Sigma, no Diva to try and negate the Graviton Surge. I love this aggression coming out from there. They just need to survive. Mira, keep him alive. He fell down to so low. He was 7 health. Just got out of his life. And a real key, crucial fight for the Gladiators to win. Again, they're rotating these ultimates. They realize that if they are to win this map right now, they need to be so efficient with the way they are using their abilities and ultimates.
Yeah, that's what it comes down to. If Birdring can win this fight with just his tire, that's enormous for them. To reset the Philadelphia Fusion now, even if Philly use ults as well, that's even better. Look at Fury. Because he died to Mira, he has no charge.
No energy. The grab comes out early. The punch into the side. Mira goes down. They've collected it. They've already got the 2 picks, and the Soundbarrier comes in late from Big Goose. The Earth Shatter. Lay it on top. Birdring desperately tries to turn it into his favor, but he only gets 1 with the tire. Still alive. Pumping in the damage. Even so, Sado goes down, and now it is all down to Big Goose, but he will fall eventually. 99%. The Earth Shatter comes through, but dodged out the way. The Wraith Form there from Hisu. Finding his way, and he's going to escape with his life. Mira now has the Meteor Strike, going to be using it to get back to the safety of his team. The overtime still ticking for this one. Ivy close to his own Meteor Strike to come through. The punch will connect, and now it's ult time, leading it in right into the more of the enemy. It feels like the overtime still going. And as Fury switched over to the Wrecking Ball just to try and stall it out, just to get back into the fight quick enough, that is all they needed. The Philadelphia Fusion will seal the deal and take map number 1 in this series.
A good start to the Philadelphia Fusion's playoff run, but you got to say that was a close first map.
Very close.
The second round wasn't close, but the first and the third really could have gone either way.
Yeah.
And that's positive signs for the Gladiators. That seems to be how these two teams match up against each other. We see many overtime fights. Both teams are really confident of being able to take sticky situations where it's back and forth and just power through and turn them into their advantage. Both teams believe in themselves in the clutch, but this time it's the Fusion that come out on top, as it has been historically in 2020 so far.
Yeah. You don't want to count Gladiators out just yet, though. They're a team that often come into a lot of series with a ton of preparation in terms of custom strategies for employing, and it's really going to test the Philadelphia Fusion's adaptation skills in this series as we go forward. I don't want to count them out just yet. Well, I mean, we saw how close that opening map was, but that's going to do it for map number 1. We're going to go to a quick break, and when we come back on the other side of it, the continuation of this series will be happening. Don't go anywhere, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back soon.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Pringles Wavy. Big crunch, big flavor.
just gotta keep moving forward.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by T-Mobile. Switch today and rank up to America's largest 5G network, T-Mobile. And by State Farm. For auto, home, or renters insurance, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
I feel like we may have seen this series play out in a very similar manner before between these two teams, but it could take a turn for, you know, a little bit of a different approach this time around with the Gladiators, especially off the back of that first map, incredibly close between them, and now we're going to be heading over to the Gladiators map pick, which is, spoiler alert, going to be Numbani, and that's going to come with a couple of substitution changes as well across the board.
Yeah, this is really interesting. I mean, so far throughout the season, we've seen the Gladiators be a bit flexible with their roster. So Kevster is in for Mira. Kevster was fantastic yesterday. He really performed at a peak level alongside Birdring. But did you think that they were getting rid of Mira? No. Surprise. Mira is back in for OG now. He's playing main tank. So
is it a surprise? They've been doing this a lot.
But they haven't been running him on main tank.
It's true.
Mira has been the Brigitte, the Batiste, the Sombra and Doomfist and whatever else he's been running on DPS. But when he's been playing the tank, he has been playing the off-tank. He's been playing the Zarya. Now, I imagine he's going to be playing off-tank again, but in the main tank position, because things are weird now in the 2020 playoffs. And Roadhog is a main tank, or at least one of the viable main tanks.
Yeah, I mean, you can cross that off your 2020 bingo card.
Yeah, I think
Roadhog being played as a main tank.
Yeah, I think that's what we're going to be seeing here. A Mirror Space tank line indicates that they're probably going to be playing double off tank. Now, there is a possibility that Mirror is in to play the Zarya, and then Space himself will play the Hog. That, you know, there are other permutations of this that could be happening here, but it's interesting either way, and it shows us that Gladiators have been working on some specific looks, I think, designed to throw the Fusion off their game.
Yes, absolutely. The Fusion are going to be left wondering, and again, they're forced to adapt on the fly to these tailored strategies. This is what the Fusion, I suppose, pride themselves on, what we were saying earlier. They pride themselves on being able to adapt and be flexible in the map itself, but the Gladiators are on the attack first time because, of course, it was their map pick, so Fusion going to be getting to decide which side they want to start on. Defense usually preferable in most cases, and Numbani first is a map where you see some very odd results sometimes in terms of the map, but not for Numbani. You can see a lot of full holds here, some draws sometimes, but Josh, what do you make of this composition? Pretty standard so far, right?
For the Philadelphia Fusion, it's interesting. I mean, I would have expected a lot of these teams to be running some long-range hit scan in their defensive compositions, but instead, the Phila Fusion have got a comp that it does work great with the high ground with Sado and Fury, but it's generally speaking like a bit more of a rush composition. You've got the Lucio and the Moira, you're trying to find your targets and engage onto them. I mean, look at them go.
This is so
They're
smart.
going.
Yeah, I mean,
he's left out in the dust.
Okay, I mean, this is most likely just going to be a cleaned up fight because the Gladiators are caught unaware. But I'll explain what happened there. Hisu was just scouting. He was waiting above and gave them the exact call and timing when to just jump out then onto the enemy team. So the Fusion had complete information. They essentially had wall hacks for that entire engagement. They knew exactly where the Gladiators were and what targets to jump on. Really smart play from the Fusion to win that opening fight.
Yeah, very intelligent. And I think that's the kind of thing that we're going to be seeing over and over here. Nice hook, actually, from Fury.
Yeah,
but that's really just going to start the engagement. I mean, look at that. Space got hacked by Hisu, and they just push again. And this is the same kind of thing that was happening on Lijiang, where they're playing against a Pharah, but they don't care about the Pharah. They're just going to kill your tanks before the Pharah can get any value.
This is the spacing of the Fusion is so smart as well. They know how to prioritize their targets perfectly. I don't think they're going to want to dive in here. They're just body blocking Sado so that he can't get hooked in and killed there as he was slept. But the Fusion just coming out swinging right off the bat. They have found 2 teamfight wins, which means they have a ton of ultimates to use, and the EMP comes in again. Look at the aggression straight away. Mira's going to get burnt down with an absolute crisp. The Primal Rage committed on top just to really secure out this teamfight. It will mean the Birdring most likely falls. Indeed, he does. Nice little set play there from Sado to try and create that work, and this has been so many team fights back to back now that the Gladiators have lost. But the good news is that they now have a bunch of ultimates to use.
You can see how high tempo it is. We're only 2 minutes in, and Philadelphia feel like they've won 7 or 8 team fights. Yep. It hasn't quite been that many, but the Fusion have been very decisive. They have been immediately picking a target, going in, attacking. And Kevster still hasn't built up his first barrage, man, because he just hasn't had targets to shoot at. Philly are either waiting or they're going. There's no in between.
So much had to be committed into Mira there to keep him alive, but hacked up out of the whole hog. Crucial hack, and this nano is just negated. They're just biding their time, waiting around the corner. Hisu will end up falling in the end, but the barrage comes out with the EMP combo from Birdring. That's going to be the DMEC and the kill onto Ivy. Should ultimately be a capture of this first point. Still, Sado will attempt to stall it out for as long as he can, but futile in the end. And a nice little set play there from the Gladiators, just straight up as a combo as aged, as old as time, I feel like, with the EMP just comboed into anything.
Yeah, EMP turns out is a fantastic ultimate. Once Birdring and Kevster had their ults available, they executed on them very well. So Gladiators, you know, they lose a lot of team fights at the beginning of this map, but it's not necessarily a bad time to be setting. 3.5 minutes going into checkpoint B is pretty decent, to be honest. Let's see if they can roll this momentum forwards. Kevster should have many more opportunities to do damage as they approach. Philly have to be quite smart in terms of how they play inside cover, and then immediately, decisively, they need to find a target and engage on them.
That's why this the Winston Diva tank line requires a lot of coordination against this Roadhog comp, because one hook and you're pretty much over. So they're going to be diving into the backline, trying to split them up. See the hook, the hack comes through. Sado's so low, but Fury was there with the defense matrix to peel. Takes away a lot of the damage coming through. Valkyrie was committed here from Big Goose. That was a hook, I think, out of the EMP. What a play from Mira. Anubis going to be committed on top of that as well. The Fusion trying to turn it around with the self-destruct. Might be able to get an opening here, but Mira so close now to the whole hog as well. You should be able to use this now as the res comes through onto space. He's going to be able to remech. They have such a huge advantage coming into this now.
What a fantastic hook from Mira. It's given them just such a huge opportunity to be able to push this one forwards. Kevster gets taken out though, going for a barrage in the mid-air. He thought that the Fusion were focusing down their tank line because everyone was pressuring Mira. He saw an opportunity, it just didn't quite work.
Split second of an opportunity for the Fusion to be able to get a pick there, and they just find it. When Kevster was a little bit too far forward, his team wasn't there to support him with the barrage.
Faster respawns though, Brett, and they're going to be able to continue moving down the streets phase. There's going to be one final fight, but Fusion don't really have any ults to be able to work with. The Death Blossom, you can see Ivy hiding. If he can find the perfect timing, it could still be huge, but I mean, it's negated immediately by the defense matrix.
We'll see what Birdring can do now with this EMP comes through, and Anubis as well. Mira will happily find as many kills as possible. It's definitely the most ideal scenario to be in if you're a Roadhog right there. All the resources being invested into you, but Fusion coming through now with the sound barrier. Funny Astro will survive. After that hook came through, Mira not able to connect onto the kill. Still, they just waited out to get the hacks off, and they're able to take out Fury. Now, the Coalescence a little bit late from the Fusion. Not able to do too much damage, but enough that Sado will trade it out onto Shaz. Mira not getting anything done with that whole hog either, being pushed back and shot in the face there from Ivy as he loops around and manages to catch Kevster as well. Still, not a done and dusted fight for either side as the self-destruct will be committed, and the respawners are coming in now for the Gladiators. In fact, the resurrect onto Mira as well means that's a huge swing in momentum. They might be able to get another pick off the back of it. Ivy's so close to this Death Blossom.
EMP for Birdring as well here. Could also be huge. Neither team wants to give up. Both of these teams in these clutch overtime or extended fight scenarios, rather, believe they can win. They just throw bodies in because they're both so confident they can clutch out the fight.
EMP will connect onto both the tanks again. Death Blossom comes through from Ivy just to try and get them away, just to stave off, once again, that aggressive push in there by the Gladiators. And the self-destruct from Fury is going to push them back a decent amount. The hack comes through, the nano pretty much negated entirely here. Now you're going to see Alarm using that Coalescence to try and keep his team alive in this fight, waiting for a couple of the respawners to come in perhaps. Still another hack will cancel him out of it just at the tail end. Sado using that Primal Rage.
That is amazing.
With a nice barrier there, or a nice barrage I should say from Kevster, still turning it around. There's still players in this fight. The tank's alive though for the Gladiators, finding a lot of picks off the back of it, and Kevster rezzed up in the midst of this chaos. The overtime is ticking, but it looks like an inevitability that the Gladiators will secure it, and they do just that. But only a minute 30 on the clock to work with.
What an incredibly timed barrage from Kevster. The flank was beautiful to be able to set his team up with an advantage, and it was behind Philadelphia, so it split attention as well. But at the same time, how did the Fusion keep that going for so long?
It's crazy,
there were
right?
so many times where the Gladiators were advantaged in that fight, and they just still couldn't close it out. Now there's only a minute left on the clock.
And an EMP for Hisu means that could be quick work in the next team fight, depending on how. Because that nano boost is going to be applied to Mirror as soon as the EMP comes out, comes through. Insta, you're going to see the nano again onto Mirror just to try and keep him alive. But a huge Bionade onto Funny Astro, and Fury forces them back still. Ivy will connect that pulse bomb, getting the kill onto Kevster, but Space attempting to turn it around with the self-destruct, and Kevster coming back in with the damage-boosted rockets now. The Gladiators unwilling to give up even an inch. They want to move forward, and especially now that Birdring has built up this EMP, lets it rip straight away. They're going to burn down Sano once again. 20 seconds remaining now. The Gladiators need to push forward with this momentum.
Kevster's going to get a positioning way above the rest of the party as well. So Philly, as soon as they come out of spawn, they're going to have a Pharah directly above their heads. He could be crucial in this fight. There's no one really to deal with him, but they need their Roadhog back. Mirror is only just now reconnected with the rest of his team. He needs to make space so that Kevster can get forwards again.
Alarm's got to stay alive. He's being spammed out, 32 health. He can't really help out the rest of his team. He can't heal them up at the moment. You can see Sano using that Primal Rage. The Sound Barrier committed as well. The Fusion, they have all the tools at their disposal to try and close this out, to stop the Gladiators from capping that final section. Post Bomb slamming into them with the leap as well. That'll be enough. So much cleave damage just bursting through them, and the Gladiators stopped it just shy of that third checkpoint. Not going to be able to reach it. A great showing from the Fusion, I think, throughout that entire half. The ability for them to just dive in and out, contesting the cart, burning so much time over the course of that entire half was just insane. It takes so much coordination to be able to pull that off.
It really does. There's enormous credit to the Philadelphia Fusion, especially, in my opinion, their tank line of Sado and Fury, because they are playing on a knife's edge. If they stray just a little too far forwards, Mirror's going to rip them to pieces, and Fury always has to be there to be able to peel the hooks. Sado has to be very careful in terms of he needs to make space with the Winston, but he can't feed, because otherwise they're just totally wasted. That entire opportunity has disappeared. Great stick.
Oh, that is so class.
Tell you what, too, Ivy coming in here and playing the Reaper and the Tracer, which you would normally expect Carpe to be on, but he looks great.
Yeah.
Ivy has... Okay, it's not the most difficult meta in the world for a Tracer to play, because most of the time you're just trying to burn down the tanks. You're mostly trying to focus on Mirror and Space once hacks have been on, or you know, that kind of stuff. You're not really diving squishy targets. But at the same time, massive credit to the guy, because he has come in here and he is so coordinated with the rest of the team. And he has been able to pull off clutch moments like that, where he pulse bombs the Pharah. You almost wouldn't really be able to tell that Carpe wasn't in the roster right now.
Yeah, you hide the names. It's difficult to tell. And that's almost sacrilege to some Philly supporters as well, if you say that.
Absolutely.
But Ivy has been playing very, very well. You can tell it's kind of working. Still, the map is not over just yet. The Fusion are going to get their time to attack now. And on Numbani, anything is possible. You can see the Gladiators still opting into this Pharah. The spam damage was being sent into this upper section, and they're going to try and pick a target in the moment. Sado hacked up. He's going to peel away here. Slept into the back line as well, but instantly woken up there. Bit of a misplay, but not enough for him to get anything else out of it. In fact, the Gladiators are going to be the ones walking away with the pick. There's going to be some early point pressure. Yeah, a lot of space created there just from Sado. Dying in the backline means that it's already almost 2 ticks. Nice peel once again. Mirror not getting anything with the hook, but the D-Mech onto Fury means he's not going to be there with the defense matrix, but he is going to be coming out with the baby blaster there, taking out space. Now the Nano has to be committed onto Mirror just to keep this fight from falling into the clutches of the Fusion. This Coalescence so deadly, so potent. They might be able to collect a couple of kills, and they do just that. The dive, it comes back in from the Fusion. It was looking so winnable for the Gladiators, but you got to remember, Numbani, both of the spawn points are almost an equal distance for both the attackers and defenders.
Funny Astro's dueling a Pharah in the air.
So much
that's so funny,
man.
Astro. He does. He has so much confidence and so much skill as well. He's one of the most mechanically gifted Lucios we have in the entire league. And I think we're seeing, again, one of the weaknesses of running Pharah-based compositions is that you just don't have the same presence on the ground. And if you play against a team that tries to turn up the tempo and rush you down, Kevster's just struggling to get that much value because he's a Pharah. He does damage over time. He needs the team fights to take a long time in order for him to put out that level of damage with his rockets.
EMP early comes out, but the Fusion answering with their sound barrier perfectly again. Funny Astro waiting around the corner. He connects it onto the majority of his team and gives them enough health to just try and brute force their way through this team fight. The Streets phase made easy, squeaky clean, if you will. And now with 4 minutes on the clock here, pushing this in. They have a lot of ultimates to work with, but so do the Gladiators. They're going to be working with, the Valkyrie, which is okay to try and actually get through the choke point here, but Hisu's going to be looking for an early hack now, Josh.
Well, at the same time, I mean,
okay,
they just don't have an opportunity to contest either. You think about the people who make space on the Gladiators, and it's Mirror and Kevster. And Kevster can't really effectively make space against the Philadelphia Fusion because they don't care about the Pharah. They're just going to run over your tank line. So Mirror is having such a difficult game here. And if he wanted to try and contest that checkpoint, he would have got blown up in a second. Yeah. So we'll see him try and stall them out at this corner here. It's a good position for Kevster to be in. He's got height advantage. He can't be spammed. Got the nano boost now as well.
He's not finding anything there. The Fusion knows to just back off. And yeah, I mean, just thinking back as well to the Fusion being allowed to just cap that in and walk it in. I know probably a lot of people spamming C9, but it is that if the Gladiators were to contest that, it's a very high-risk, low-reward play. But you can see now the Fusion trying to work their way in. Nice whole hog, actually. Doesn't get any kills, but it does force the positioning of the Fusion back. Pushes them away, so the Coalescence is going to get nothing done. The Alarm just sending in the orbs, just trying to build up a couple of ultimates, and this is all the Fusion are trying to attempt here. Kevster using that ultimate, they're committing the EMP, really? Okay, a little bit surprised by that, but they feel like it's turnable. Why not? Did lose a player early on, but they're finding all the opportunities now. Sado unleashing the Primal Rage, but he is going to get hacked up, so he is essentially just a walking potato, or a leaping potato. Potatoes leap if they had legs, I don't know. But right now, in the final moments, the Gladiators have got to do something with this. Birdring has the EMP, has to stall out this card. Only 4 minutes remaining. Mirror's going to be able to touch this one. EMP comes out, but Funny Astro again. Perfect spacing. The soundbarrier connects onto everybody. They just now have to get the job done, which is going to be made difficult because Mirror, the nano boost, and the whole hog. Everyone pushed back and a decent amount of damage. The longer this fight goes, the better it should be for the Gladiators in theory, especially with Fury going down.
Yeah, absolutely. But the Philadelphia Fusion can also just reset and build their EMP. I love this swap though. Kevster moving over to the Ashe. And it's not a hero we've seen too much from him over the course of the season, but it is one that whenever we've seen him on it, he's been very effective. He's got that skill and the flexibility to be able to play a bunch of different heroes, and Kevster on the Ashe just provides a lot more threat than his Pharah does. Yeah. He can get picks early on in the fights. He has overall more damage and pressure to put onto the Philadelphia Fusion. But they're going for this flank all the way around the side. Oh, it's a bait. Now they're going to speed boost engage from the front with the EMP.
Yeah, but a great hack onto Ivy means he won't be able to use that Death Blossom into the coming fight, but does it even matter? Mirror's out of this one. Ivy's still waiting, moving forward to Wraith. The Wraith form does not want to opt to even use the ultimate because he realizes his team is losing the subsequent fight, even with the Coalescence Alarm now hacked out of it. Not able to get anything done, and because of that Valkyrie, it's just healing up the rest of his team. That passive healing comes through clutch in moments like this. 2.5 minutes is what this has been distilled down to.
This is good.
And a great hold from the Gladiators.
Brent, look how much more scared the Fusion are of Kevster now that he's on the Ashe. Ivy was struggling to get close to the payload there because he's worried about getting headshot from the Ashe. That constant worry about getting picked off or the dynamite coming through and being able to finish you off is so crucial. And I think the long-range hit scan is exactly what the Gladiators needed.
Has the EMP, but again, it's that game of chicken coming through the EMP, and it catches Funny Astro. He's not going to be able to use the sound barrier for this next fight, but it needs to be a clean win now for the Gladiators. Do take down Sado and Ivy, so back of that, you'd expect them now to just have no contention in the backline here. What's Fury doing? Going to get demeched and stalled out. That's a brutal stall as well, because, I mean, he's not going to be getting out of there.
This next fight though, Brent, 1.5 minutes left. The Gladiators have done a great job at ticking down the time, for sure. But this time, the Fusion can engage with the Coalescence, dive really deep to put pressure on Kevster, and then they have an EMP for the front line as well. No matter which way the Fusion want to engage, if they want to mix up their ults in a bunch of different ways, they have all the tools available. And Birdring, even though he's building up his EMP pretty quickly, is still only at 50%. Look at the damage though! This Ashe is just so much better than the Pharah.
Yeah. And the Gladiators are being criticized, I think, for their lack of adaptation during a match as well, being too stuck in their ways. But this showcases this is a new and improved Gladiators. Bob sent into the backline here. Mira has to back off with the breather to survive, but the whole hog pushes them away. EMP's layered up on top of the sound barrier. The Fusion rolling it forwards. They will want to deny it now. Only a single player remains, and just like that, the map will be over in a blink of the eye. The Fusion overwhelm the Gladiators, and they're going to be taking a nice and easy 2-0 lead in this series.
Yeah, nice and easy, at least for the majority of Numbani.
Yeah, maybe that's a bit of an understatement in terms of the easy aspect.
That final portion, they had 4.5 minutes, something like that on the time bank, and they whittled it down to about a minute left when they went for that final fight. So a pretty good adaptation and defense from the Gladiators, but it was just too little too late, which is the issue. And now they're 2-0 down in the series, but they have shown a look that has put pressure on the Fusion, which I think is key to making the correct adaptations to try and reverse sweep this series as we move towards the second half. I'd be interested to hear what our analysts in the game break have to say about it as well, but for me, I feel like there was a clear difference between when Kevster was running that Ashe and between when he was running the Pharah, and I definitely think the Ashe or some kind of long-range hit scan seems to be a better look for them trending towards the second half of this series.
I mean, you could just see how potent it was as well. I mean, the fact that they held them off for so long, but it's exactly as you said it, Josh. I want to hear what our analysts have to say in the game break. So we're going to be heading to that. A short break. When we come back from that, our smartest minds in Overwatch are going to be breaking down the series that we have just been witnessing. Don't go anywhere, guys. We'll be right back.
Coca-Cola is the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.
Welcome to Game Break, presented by Cheese It Grooves, and we're 2 maps into our series between the LA Gladiators and the Philly Fusion. And we kick things off on Lijiang Tower, and Custer, it looked like the Gladiators were having commitment issues.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit in the pre-show, right? Of yesterday, they really only sort of gave us the Winston Diva dive style. There was some adaptation in the support and DPS line here and there. But then we come into today, they play 3 rounds of Lijiang Tower, and they play something completely different every time. In the first round, we saw them play this very aggressive brawl style with, Torbjorn Reaper and just sort of run it down. In the second round, they play Farah Sombra with a Roadhog Diva. And then on the last round, they played some Doomfist, they played Zaya, it was all over the place. And they played 14 heroes, and 13 of those were with less than 2 minutes time played. So you can just sort of see the amount of ideas and strategies that come out. Usually this is where I would slam a lot of teams and be like, you guys are spreading yourself too thin. But Lijiang sort of leans towards that style, and I actually really like everything that they brought out in that map. It just didn't really go their way at the very end. So we went on to map 2, and then you saw more of a consistent lineup, but still something different.
Yeah, still something different. They decided to play the Roadhog with Mirror, of course, and they stuck with that Farah that Josh talked about so many times, how Mirror was this far in the sky and putting out a lot of damage over time. What I really liked about this map, honestly, was the fact that both teams played a different style, a different composition, but really showed great skill in both compositions. I think they really showed here, both teams, that you can play both of these compositions at a very high level and win some of these series. So for the side of LA Gladiators, they were playing this Farah for most of the time, but later on Kevster obviously swapped to that Ashe, but they showed very great resilience doing so. We didn't see Mirror and Space get picked off too much. They stayed alive to buy time for Kevster and Birdring. And then you look at the Philadelphia Fusion. They didn't want to opt into the Roadhog composition, so they stuck Sado on that Winston. And they were able to play this very highly paced, fast dive style and get away with it because they know their limitations when they play with the Lucio and Moira, and they know how to engage and disengage appropriately. So this was a really great map. Fantastic Overwatch from both teams on Numbani, but Philadelphia Fusion, they get away with it in the final fight.
Well, Custer, you want to keep things on Numbani for Crunch Time, presented by Cheese It Groove. So what do you want to show us?
Yeah, I kind of want to talk about the Philadelphia Fusion's opening going into Numbani when they held incredibly close. As Reinforce just said, we're starting to see playoff bracket top-level ideas and plans. You're seeing Philadelphia Fusion recognizing their win condition on the composition that they're leaning towards playing, which is the Reaper Sombra with the Winston Dive. They know Mirror's in the lineup. They know he's probably going to play sort of a Roadhog. They're not going to be playing as much dive. So they set up close and win this initial fight. As much as it seems like they only made themselves 20 seconds, it actually compounds and it adds so much more on. You saw after this fight, they got another great fight in which they built up ult charge, and then they won another fight with their EMP, and that sort of wasted 1.5 to 2 minutes, which then ended up leading to a full hold on the 3rd point. Every second counts. So it was just very smart play by the Philadelphia Fusion.
And also, I think that in hindsight, the LA Gladiators, obviously they picked Numbani here because they thought they'd get away with it, but the Philadelphia Fusion take Numbani. I think that the LA Gladiators still showed great adaptation because they adjusted to the Philadelphia Fusion's aggression and showed great play overall. So going into the second half, I think the LA Gladiators, they can either opt into the Winston composition or they can honestly carry on playing the Roadhog composition because it was a very competitive map. I think, if you want to be a hindsight herald, maybe they shouldn't have picked Numbani because Philadelphia Fusion were so great at diving on that map. But the LA Gladiators still, they brought a very high level of Overwatch, and I think going into the second half, they can be comfortable knowing that they can edge out these maps and maybe perhaps turn the series around.
Well, Gladiators are actually subbing Mirror out and they're putting OGE back in, so we're probably going to see a Winston or even a Wrecking Ball because we're going to Anubis next. Yeah. And for Fusion, Ivy is out and Carpe, ladies and gentlemen, is in. So we're going to see him finally take to the server for the first time in the winners bracket of the NA playoffs here. So we're going to head, as I said, over to Anubis after this break with the lovely Bren and Sideshow.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Cheese It Grooves. Deep flavor, deep crunch. It's a mind crunch. The Overwatch League is brought to you by HyperX. Unleash your style, unleash your fury with HyperX Fury Memory. And by Coca-Cola, the official refreshment of the Overwatch League.
Welcome back, everybody, and yeah, we're excited to get back into it here. The first series of the day of the North American Quarterfinals winners bracket, and straight away we're going to see some changes being made once again. But some changes I think that some Philadelphia Fusion fans are going to be quite happy to see, and some Gladiators fans definitely not so happy to see, because Carpe is going to be coming back in now for Ivy. I say coming back in, but it's going to be his first time being seen in this series, which is quite surprising. But Ivy has been more than comparable, actually, just the entire series long.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the heroes that Ivy has been playing, they haven't really been the ones that Carpe would specialize in. Apart from the Tracer, obviously. Carpe is an elite level Tracer, but it's not that kind of meta where you need somebody who's fantastic at picking off individuals in the back.
Winning the Tracer duel or...
Yeah, exactly. That kind of stuff. It's much more of a team-based kind of style. OG as well coming back in for Mirror, and it's of course going to be the Gladiators map pick of Temple of Anubis too. So this is all Gladiators really setting the stage, and the Fusion having to adapt, but so far they've done it beautifully. I mean, their play on Numbani was fantastic. You would have thought that it was the Fusion that picked that map. They just looked so comfortable on it. So this is interesting to me. I think Anubis, it's got some places where you can set up for long sight lines with hit scan players. I'm anticipating them to play the Ashe. I'd love to see Carpe versus Birdring. I mean, I would just love to see it. If we can get that matchup, even if the Gladiators end up going out of our winners bracket up here and falling down to the lower bracket, if there's any way to do it, it should be with a Carpe versus Birdring. Oh, yeah. These two players have just been mainstays of the Overwatch elite level for year upon year upon year. And they are in some sense kind of similar as well, right? They have the same kind of hero pools, the same kind of elite status and respect on their names. But whereas Birdring had some teams that he didn't quite gel with, and this has been a rebirth for him on the Gladiators, Carpe has always been able to put up these kind of numbers. And this year, he has just had a better team around him to be able to perform even better.
And I'll tell you, it's interesting that you bring that up as well, because historically, Birdring has had championship wins. I mean, of course, you think back to when they was on GC Busan, right? It's like...
Birdring?
Sorry, no, was it Birdring?
Kongdu Panthera.
Yes, yes. And I mean, coming back, the wins, it's always been there, and Carpe has been trying to live up to a lot of these expectations for quite some time. And maybe now this is the opportunity. Now, I don't think we're going to get in a hit scan duel like we were hoping for. And maybe, I mean, Birdring is teasing us a little bit here, swapping off various different roles. But it seems like an early composition here from the Gladiators are going to be running that Reaper and the Sombra alongside it, as well as the DPS duo, and some pretty typical Winston D.Va dive as well. And the other side of things, the Fusion are going to be running Carpe on the Ashe. So a lot of that long-range pressure, the damage being pumped into them from afar. Very perfect for this first point of Anubis.
Yeah, Carpe can just ruin everything in these pushes. If he hits his shots, the Gladiators are like this, very decisively moving up to the top left. Except for Birdring, who was left in the choke point, maybe didn't quite get the call. Clearly some communication issue there, because Birdring is now... and this is a problem with the Gladiators. They tend to lose a player as they come in through the choke and then struggle to meet back up with them. It happened multiple times in their Toronto series. It has happened previously many times before as well.
We'll see now the dive engagement comes in from the Gladiators, but they are going to be lacking Birdring as he just waddles through the choke point with that Ray form. And the damage, no one's there to dislodge Carpe from this high ground. Sada will end up falling in the end, but hopefully they can clear these players off the point. They might be able to get the Resurrect off space. The Bionade might mean that he's going to get DMEC TND. That is what happens. The Coalescence comes out from Shaz. A pretty poor positioning. He doesn't really get any value out of it. In fact, he's going to get hacked out of it as well. You are going to be building up the Coalescence pretty quick, but I don't like to see wasted ultimates like that, especially when you're 2 maps down. The Gladiators need to be playing picture perfect here. And the Philadelphia Fusion are just leaning into the aggression even more so. As you can see, the EMP is going to be layered into them here. The Slip just about missing, but Alarm, wonderful shots keeping his support duo partner, Funny Astro, alive when he was just being pressured so heavily. Sada now with the Primal Rage, creating so much space for his team. He's adequately just going to be diving straight into them to see if his team can find any more of these stragglers. Space.
Oh, no.
This is such a brutal stagger. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. I also want to give credit, massive credit, to Funny Astro and Alarm in that fight. Alarm goes down and Funny Astro, he goes in there, he's able to get the res with Fury, I think, making space for him. And then Alarm keeps Funny Astro alive as they're on the retreat. And just that synergy between the two of them is beautiful to see. It is an amazing backline for peeling. Probably the best that we have in the league when it comes to peeling for each other. Maybe not as aggressive and powerful as, for example, the Shock backline, but defensively sublime.
Starting to see this Ash really just be a nuisance for the Gladiators. They're going to be leading it in. They're diving straight onto Carpe. They want to try and bring him down. OG even committing this Primal Rage to see if they can get this kill. But look at the peel. The EMP connects onto 6 players. Hisu finding huge value from it. And Carpe still alive with the damage boost. 2 kills for him. The wraparound, the rotations were being made. Still they try and bring him down, and finally they will be rewarded with the kill. But that has created so much space now for the Fusion to capitalize, and they're going to get the Resurrect off onto Hisu to see what he can do in the rest of this team fight. As OG and Space fall, Murdering the last one standing here. Sound barrier applied onto him, but a wasted ultimate now from the Gladiators as the players will fall. And the longer this fight gets staggered out, the worse it looks for the Gladiators with only 40 seconds remaining, Josh.
Fury is absurd as well. He is just everywhere on the map, wherever his team needs him. Just such an anchor of team coordination, able to help the backline, help Sado. He's everywhere and everywhere at once. Hisu with that kill on the Kevster. That's getting brutal. Both EMPs at about 50%, but 20 seconds on the clock and no ults to work with for the Gladiators. How do they make this happen? There's a Bob to contest the point as well.
Yeah,
so these guys on the high ground, they just don't even need to give up their position. Obviously going to get pushed out of it now, but Gladiators are playing close with the time.
The spacing is so good. Sado just blocks them off so that Carpe can retreat. The Bob comes out. Then Blossom in the back line. Birdwing finds 2. The support line's down. What a play, finding it in their moment of need. Removing that support back line, and the overtime will still tick down, but no more heals will mean it is a very, very difficult fight for the Fusion to win. And off the back of that play, Gladiators will give one more opportunity here in this series. It was almost over. The worst, or the best they could have done then in that scenario would have been a draw, which is would have been an absolute disaster, but they are given a bit of a lifeline.
I think Carpe was playing nice here. I think he gives him the assist. Take a look at this. He gets coach gunned into the back line. Oh, poor Funny Astro and Alarm. Carpe is just so hungry for kills that he needs to find some on his own team as well.
A little bit of assist there. The Fusion, they need to stop the Gladiators here right in their tracks. If they snowball, it could be disastrous. Sado just dodging and juking with the Primal Rage, trying to knock the hack, the manual hack coming out from Kevster here, but the EMP will cleave onto so many players now. An opportunity for the Fusion to try and clean up here, but a self-destruct not connecting onto anyone. You can see Space working his way into the back line, falling very, very low. The Gladiators still alive, still in this fight. The longer they leave it though, the more the Fusion are going to be respawning, and Alarm with that nano boost applied, just about fading. Still, yeah, the Staller's going to be picked up here by the Fusion. A nice and clean, concise win. There's always a danger there that the Gladiators were going to be able to snowball that all the way into that second objective, into that second checkpoint. But thankfully for the Fusion, they managed to stop it, admittedly at the cost of a lot of their own ultimates making those swaps.
Carpe now moving over to Reaper as well. He got nano boosted in the previous fight while he was on the Ash. And Alarm goes over to the Moira as well. It's back to this mirror composition. The Philadelphia Fusion have showcased that they played this comp really well, but we haven't seen them mirror it, especially with an ult disadvantage. The Gladiators are going to have double support ultimate online right now, plus a self-destruct. The time is good to make this.
Hisu comes in with the early EMP. They need to bring down Big Goose, and they do just that. What a play from the Fusion, recognizing their win condition here.
But also, Big Goose has got to have that available, right? This is 1 minute left on the clock with you having a massive ult advantage. The Coalescence is used, and Big Goose isn't there to be able to save his team. I think, you know, Anubis is a very difficult map to be able to sit around as a Lucio. Once you've committed through the choke point, you're kind of in. You're into the Hisu's sightlines. Hisu, again, by the way, already back up to 50% of that ultimate.
It's absurd, isn't it? When you're on the defense, you can afford to take those pot shots, but 40 seconds remaining. The Gladiators, they have the sound right. They know there's no EMP just yet. Need to go fast a bit, though, if they want to see value come through. EMP into the Death Blossom. Bird Ring finds one. Pumps in enough damage for his team to collect a couple of more kills here. The self-destruct will peel them off the point, but the kills are flowing for the Gladiators. One after the other off the back of the EMP. Double support odds, though, for the Fusion, as they're going to be leading this in now, trying to contest this in the last second. 90% the Coalescence, keeping them alive, but nobody touches.
They didn't touch, Brent. That's a disaster. They had EMP and Coalescence. Yep. Both of their tanks were coming back, one on Roadhog, and they don't even get it into overtime.
Yeah, I'll defend it to a degree as well. Because this is something that Jake, who I live with, has lectured me many, many times when it comes to Charlie Niners in this scenario. I mean, we're watching it in slow-mo here. But the top teams, the best teams in the world, this is something that Jake constantly reiterates. The top teams in the world are the most likely to C9 in a lot of scenarios because they want to maximize every single percentage point, that 0.1%. If they can stop it right in the nick of time, it could be the difference between winning the series and losing it. So when you're trying to maximize your time of jumping in and out of the point, you know, playing that musical chairs, trying to keep it going, trying to get that time ticking, still the overtime, that is when there's more opportunities to mess up, realistically speaking.
Definitely. So, yeah, I mean, you can see there as well that Hisu was pressured, has to fall back, and Funny Astro, even though you can say with the power of hindsight, Funny Astro definitely should have been the one that was touching the objective, the communication has to be spot on there for them to be able to realize that. That's not a mistake you often see from Philly, though. I mean, there were many players alive.
Yeah, there were many players alive.
That's a rough one, especially in the context of the position. They were almost going to full hold them on point A, and now they've given them time still in the bank and a completion of checkpoint B. They're going to be kicking themselves.
Such a big deal, isn't it? Gladiators with a huge win condition in this match. If they can pull off something similar to what Philly did, this could be where the reverse sweep begins for where they want to try and...
No long-range hit scan, though, Brett.
Yeah,
not on the Ash. So it's just a mirror battle again.
Probably looking for a bit of close quarters engagement here. What do you think, Josh? Diving into them?
Yeah, I think it's going to be more of like a rush composition rather than a dive, because you don't really have mobility on the Sombra or the Reaper.
Sure.
And you don't want to use the Translocator as a mobility option. It's a get-out-of-jail-free card. So the Philadelphia Fusion, I think, are just going to be trying to create space, maybe escort their team in through a position once the ultimates are up. You can see that, you know, because the teams don't really have an opportunity to dive the backline, it's more of a frontline fight between these comps.
Yeah, and they're really brawling at the front gates, aren't they? Trading blow for blow. EMP connects onto 6 for the Gladiators. Should be an easy cleanup as the Fusion look to just... I don't want to invest anything into this fight.
Yeah, that's actually a pretty good thing for the Fusion, to be honest. Even though they took 1 minute and 20 seconds to be able to get into this position, the Philadelphia Fusion now have an EMP that they can use on the high ground, and that will provide them the advantage that they need to be able to take space. Otherwise, you can see that even though people might think of this as being pretty similar to a dive comp, it doesn't really play like that. It's more of like a rush comp with a Winston.
I'm going to be trying to target Birdring here, but Hisu getting damaged out of his manual hack. He's not able to get that one off, but he has the EMP ready and waiting. Decides to just use it straight away anyway. The tanks of the Gladiators are going to be currently disabled. They can't walk around, and yeah, OG somehow gets out alive of that. Just leapt through the choke point. I think the momentum carried him, even though the EMP came off. This is giving a great opportunity for the Gladiators to try and make something happen here. Birdring has the Death Blossom. Sandbar are going to be used. Oh, no. Ooh, just had the Ray Form in time. Is going to be able to dodge and juke that one out. But Big Goose coming in with the later sound barrier. Still the Fusion rolling forward. OG going to be falling in this fight pretty early on. You lost your Winston player. Can Birdring try and clutch it up now, though? Fusion, again, committing so many ults here. As you can see, Sado, beautiful work to just isolating Shaz, taking him away from the rest of the team, securing that opening kill, removing a lot of the healing away from this fight, and it is as simple as that. They can just clean up the remnants, what remain on this first point. They're going to have a lot of time to work with now. And a lot of ults as well. This Coalescence could snowball into something else.
It could, especially because Kevster used his EMP in the previous fight and only found Carpe. So that one-man EMP combined with OG just slightly overstepping his welcome and going down led to a situation where even though Gladiators had the better positioning, they lost the fight overall because they made that little error, that little overextension, and Fusion punished them for it. Now Fusion getting close to their EMP. I think that's going to be the go signal because the Coalescence is going to be mirrored on the other side. So as soon as Hisu has this EMP, they can fully commit to the fight.
Better Coalescence from the Gladiators. Going to be lasting a little bit longer in this fight just to keep the team up. But yeah, just waiting for this EMP. Hisu 7% away from it now. That will be the go button. Birdring might look for a little teleport into the backline play. He's been so good with this. The timing of his Death Blossoms have been elite so far in the playoffs, and now he might be going for it. The leap into the backline comes through. He's going to get hacked up though before he can get anything done. And Carpe just unleashes the Death Blossom of his own, brings him down. It's not quite the 1v1 that was promised on these particular rolls, but it's a kill nevertheless. I'll take it. Sound barrier from the Fusion to try and lead this one in even further. Space just peeling away for the rest of his team with the self-destruct, and OG using that Primal Rage, despite the fact that he's hacked up, is going to get a lot of value out of it, taking Fury out of this fight and knocking him behind the enemy lines.
Philly have really missed their opportunity to go for one big team fight win. The Gladiators have played this pretty nicely. The spacing was good so that not everybody died to that Carpe Death Blossom, and only 3 of them got caught in the EMP. But Hisu has another one. Hisu with another EMP ready to go. EMP plus Coalescence here could be devastating. Funny Astro hacked in the back lines, but EMP Coalescence, here it comes.
Yeah, it comes through. They're going to try and collect any kill they can possibly find here on one of the hacked targets, but they're not finding anything. This is what
Again,
the Gladiators...
good positioning from the Gladiators.
Yeah.
Pretty perfect.
So good, but Birdring waiting in the backline. We wanted to go for it. The EMP comes through. Fusion with the sound barrier comes after the EMP. A bit of a brutal mistake, but Fusion still not finding any picks here because OG has that Primal Rage, battering them around. The sound barrier is much better, and Birdring rolling forward again. Death Blossom will get hacked out and cancelled, and a wonderful dive attempt here from the Fusion. They just double back and make sure to take care of Birdring.
This is enormous, Brandon, because Hisu has another EMP available as well.
Hisu with the EMP, will he choose to use it in this fight? He's so low, wants to hold on to it because he realizes the spawners are coming in. He can't afford to let it loose just this early. The capture starts to come through now as the time's remaining. Hisu with this EMP is the nail in the coffin that they're looking for. Waiting, biding his time, finally lets it loose because now they switch over to the Wrecking Ball, the prime target for it. Coalescences are going to be trading blows, hosing down every single member of the opposing team. But it seems like it is all Philadelphia Fusion right now. Space of a last-ditch self-destruct to try and turn this one around. They don't bring him down in time, and a charge comes through in the back line. OG just trying to make it work. Bunny Astro leading it in now with the sound barrier just on top. This should be enough players. This should be enough casualties. They may be able to get this capture off, just a couple of players remaining, and they are going to do just that. But in terms of the time bank difference, those 50 seconds, it could mean a lot.
They could. I mean, Temple of Anubis and the way that this meta works is very slow-paced, though, on point A. So, I don't know. It kind of seems pretty even to me. The biggest difference when you think about Temple of Anubis is the Gladiators being able to capture point B. The fact that they didn't have to make it go to OT, the fact that they were able to secure it with 12 seconds left on the clock, the fact that we're even in that position just gives them this extra life to be able to clutch victory from the jaws of defeat here, 2-0 down in the series. I think it's very possible here, Brad. Philly on attack have well, actually now they're running on defense as well, but this mirror comp is so slow. The Gladiators were good at defending with it. They were really smart with how they position.
I'm really surprised that the Fusion are not going to be opting into Carpe on the Ashe, to be honest. Because I felt like the long-range damage, as well as that, I felt like they were very effective at stopping Gladiators before they even got through the choke. It's pretty likely that you're able to get a kill. Here's that charge from OG. I think this was hacked out. Was it?
Yeah, looks like it.
Booped to the side, hack.
It gets booped and hacked. If that boop hadn't been there, the hack wouldn't have had time to land. God, that's insane.
What an insane play, definitely.
All right, I think, though, Brent, the reason that they're not running Carpe on the Ashe is because they want to slow the game down. There's only a minute on the clock here for the Gladiators. So play the mirror. Make it slow. And the Gladiators are forced to push. They're forced to make a mistake.
See if they're able to do it. Gladiators, as you said, Josh, were very good on the defense. And now they're going to be battering head first straight through that initial choke point. The Gladiators have a high ground position right now, rolling forward again. Space denying this high ground. You can see the instant approach now as Carpe is going to teleport up to the high ground of his own. Space in a bit of trouble, but he's going to be returning with the rest of his team. Both teams need to be playing this very carefully. One slip-up could cost the entire series right now for the Gladiators.
OG.
Moving into the backline, OG overstepped himself a tad. His team could not peel for him. He goes down, only 7 seconds remaining, Josh. And the players are falling like dominoes. Big Goose will be next, and the Coalescence is just the cherry on top. EMP as well, that will seal that. The best that the Gladiators can now hope for is a draw.
They had opportunities. The Gladiators did a good job of being able to make space at the beginning of that team fight, you know? They got control over the market area, they pressured Hisu up top. They had opportunities to win. But again, they're playing against the clock. There was only a minute to be able to make some magic happen. So they couldn't wait for their ults. They can't wait for Philadelphia to make a mistake. They can't really play it that slow. Instead, they have to try and force something. And in trying to force something, OG fell. So I could still see a draw here, though. Hope has not disappeared for the Gladiators. If they can draw on Anubis, we'll be going to our 4th map. The Gladiators will still be 0-2 down. They'll still have to complete some kind of epic reverse sweep with double control maps towards the end, but it's still feasible here for the Gladiators to come back into it. You think about how slow the Philadelphia Fusion were to be able to execute their offense the first round, and you got to say, it's within the realms of possibility.
It's feasible, but the reason why we talk so much about these reverse sweeps, especially from this kind of position where you'd have to complete so many maps off the back of this, considering the best the Gladiators could do is a draw. The reason we talk about it so much is because they are so rare and so hard to pull off. You have to make a mental switch at some point in this series for you to even be capable of performing that feat. It's such a test of endurance, being able to keep your eyes on the prize, essentially, and always gunning for that win without making any mistakes. We're going to see if they're capable of doing it right here, right now, because the Fusion not wasting any time whatsoever. Taking an early left flank approach, as you can see, moving straight up into the Mega Half pack. Now going to see if they can get some neutral hacks off as well. Hisu's just in the corner, seeing if he can get any target whatsoever, but they're playing the line of sight pretty well here. The Gladiators, though, eventually forced off. And they need to be careful about getting hacked out of position because it's only 33%. One pick could turn it for them. Shadow taking the high ground.
Kevster was pressured up top there for a moment, and now they've completely pushed the Gladiators onto the low ground.
Corralled them right where they want them, potentially here. He's just so close to building up this EMP. It has to be an aggressive approach from the Gladiators here. They have to dive into them, and the Coalescence will take out Funny Astro. Fusion, I think off the back of that, yep, just going to be disengaging straight away. They don't want to take this team fight any further. Every second matters.
And that delay onto Hisu could end up biting them. Yes, Hisu's built up his EMP, but so has Kevster here. The only advantage that the Philadelphia Fusion have is that they have that Coalescence. Shaz was forced to use his in the previous fight because, as you said, Brent, they need to make a play happen. And now 30 seconds left. It's still looking great for the Gladiators, but there is still that extra support ult to be worried about.
Yeah, and it's all
an EMP here, though. A good EMP from Kevster that isn't countered by Funny Astro, and they've got the win. It's a game of chicken.
The trouble is, yeah, they've got the sound barriers on both sides. EMP comes through from Hisu first. He wants to pull the trigger, and the Gladiators answer back with their own. But again, Funny Astro comes in. The double support ults might be enough to turn this one. Fusion rolling forward once again, seeing if they can get any pick off, but OG's built up the Primal Rage. Shadow answers back with one of his own. 2 picks now for the Fusion. They want to shut this down here and now. They do not want to take it into the draw. Carpe, he has the Death Blossom available. He will let it go, and 2 picks more. Carpe bringing them down. 3 for him in the end, and that will be that. The Philadelphia Fusion will be moving forward to the semi-finals.
Spectacular stuff from Philly there. Just making magic out of nothing as well. They played their ultimates perfectly. The positioning was great. They got space when it was required. And even though some of these maps were close, You cannot deny that Lijiang and Anubis were close maps. But even despite that, they come away with a clean 3-0 victory. That's dangerous. The Philadelphia Fusion ended the regular season with a 3-0 win over the San Francisco Shock, and they start their playoffs run with a similar kind of result. It's just 3-0s all the way for the Fusion until someone can stop them.
Fusion look good, man. They look really good. I was excited for this match because it was going to be the first time we got to saw the Philadelphia Fusion in this meta. I wanted to see how they were going to be adapting, but I mean, typically, over the course of the season, they've been a team that has fared very well in hero pools. They have a ton of depth to this roster, and you can tell how that has just played into this now as well. You wouldn't be able to tell that we've had just this massive shift in meta just merely weeks ago. It is absurd to think that they look this clean, this coordinated, playing admittedly some similar comps to the past, but to be able to just fit right into it and do so well is so impressive. Now we got our player of the match, of course, presented by Xfinity, and it's going to be the one, the only. It's going to be Sado. Josh, I know you're pleased about this. You were the biggest Sado apologist this side of the Western Hemisphere, so
I was.
To see him get this player of the match, I mean, it must mean a lot to you as well.
I think it'll be more to him, Brent. But yeah, I think the point that you just made there, Brent, that they're playing very similar compositions to what they've done in the past, and that you wouldn't even be able to tell there's a meta change, that's a strength of the Philadelphia Fusion, though. They have looked at what the other teams have been trying with these Hog Zarya, Hog Diva compositions, and they've said, no, we can just beat that. We have enough team coordination, and Sado and Fury are good enough at their roles on the Winston and the Diva to be able to beat those compositions. They weren't worried about running a Winston into a Roadhog and a Diva. They weren't worried about being able to take on the Pharah compositions and all sorts of other stuff that we are seeing for the first time in these 2020 playoffs. Instead, they're sticking to their strengths, team coordination, their ability to play Hisu over onto that Sombra, and they're getting big value out of it. This is what we thought would happen when we saw the 2020 playoffs run out, is that the top teams would actually be playing more of the traditional compositions because they have the skill within their team to be able to pull it off. The lower teams tend, as a general rule, to rely more on their individual ability, but teams like the Philadelphia Fusion have showcased here today that if you're a good enough team, the Winston Diva is still a very potent tank line.
And with this win, they, as I said, moving forward into the semi-finals of the North American upper bracket, and they will be playing on Sunday. And the next match we've got obviously coming after this is going to be the Los Angeles Valiant versus the Florida Mayhem, and the winner of that will be going up against the Fusion as well, so they already know who they're going to be playing against. Yeah, it does get good so fast, and consider this as well, it is double elimination. We've got the losers bracket as well, so we get so many matches, so much Overwatch. Honestly, playoffs every year with the Overwatch League. The fact that we have these long stretched out seasons, sometimes it can be very daunting, but when you get down to this, when it distills into the best teams just knocking each other down, taking wins, the storylines start to develop, there's nothing better, is there? There's absolutely nothing better.
It's so good. It's actually fantastic to watch. I'm excited to see whether Gladiators can make a run, but at the same time, the focus and the attention has to be on Philadelphia. They just look fantastic today.
Yeah, just an absolutely unreal showing as well. Just to speak a little bit on Sado as well, I mean, just an unreal player, earning our player of the match. It takes so much skill and coordination to be able to play the Winston through and through against some of these compositions that Gladiators were running against them. It's very difficult to find value sometimes like that.
Yeah, definitely. I totally agree. I think that the Philadelphia Fusion are looking good with all of the different runs that they've been doing and all of the different looks that they've had. And I think, you know, there's no better way of being able to hear that than from the people themselves. And
absolutely.
I hear a little birdie is telling me that Jonathan Reinforce Larson is down on the floor with an interview from Funny Astro, and I love what he had to say yesterday, so let's hear it again.
Thank you so much, Sideshow. Yes, indeed, I am here with Funny Astro for a nice little interview, and it seemed like a pretty hectic matchup. I saw you in the cam, of course, after the match was done. You seemed pretty tired. That was pretty high tempo right there.
It was a pretty long game. I'm kind of sad that we C9'd on Anubis. We could have finished it way faster, but yeah, at least we won.
It happens. It happens. Now, you know, there's been a lot of meta talk, of course, and you got a 3-0 victory today against the LA Gladiators. You were opting a lot to play this Winston dive composition. Now, generally, we've seen a lot of Roadhog, we've seen a lot of Zarya. What's your take on this Winston dive composition? Do you think that that's it? Do you think that that is the best composition so far?
I think we just played it map 1, and we seemed to win Lijiang with it, although it wasn't as convincing as we would have liked. But we felt like we were comfortable playing against Gladiators with this comp. Obviously in the mirror, we just felt like we were stronger than them, so we just stuck with it for the whole match.
Yeah, so was this a strategy you prepared specifically for the Gladiators, or do you think it's something you'll perhaps ride through the rest of the playoffs with?
I don't know, actually. It could be.
Fair enough.
I'm not sure. I think we're just going to take every match differently, see what matchups we can win every game with.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. So now, of course, you are in this double elimination bracket. There's 8 teams remaining. So you will be facing either the Los Angeles Valiant or the Florida Mayhem. Do you have a favorite there that you would like to go up against? They're 2 very even teams.
I think they're pretty much completely even. So it doesn't really matter who we play against. We should be fighting against both of them. They're probably around the same level of Gladiators, maybe a little bit stronger, so we might have to do a bit better than we did today.
All right, well, you got a 3-0, so, I mean, at least that counts for something. That was pretty convincing in my mind, even though the game was close. Thank you so much, Funny Astro, and good luck in your next match.
Thanks.
All right, so there you have it, a nice little interview with Funny Astro after 3-0 in the LA Gladiators. Stay tuned after this break, and we got more Overwatch coming your way.